But we talked about our contenders and who we thought after the trade deadline was our contenders in each conference. But I want to ask you, who is the one player that was dealt at the deadline that's going to have the biggest impact for the team moving forward for the rest of the season and, of course, into the playoffs?
Oh, for sure. That I don't even think this is a question. It has to be Ben Sherratt, does it not?
Yeah.
Ben Sherratt has to be the biggest addition.
0th percentile in WAR.
You gotta love it. He might be warming some benches for Barkov and Huberdeau coming into the playoffs. So no, but on a more serious note, we talked about it a lot last episode about Giroux's intangibles that really don't get noticed. Yeah. That I think fit so importantly on this Florida Panthers team making a push now, and that's why my answer is Claude Giroux. It's probably the easiest answer, but I think it's also incredibly apt and fair. The Florida Panthers coming into the deadline were in desperate need of top 6 depth. Like I mentioned last episode, having Marchment and Vernegy in your top 6 is probably tough to beat teams like the Leafs in Tampa and Boston, let alone the absolute beasts in Colorado and Calgary on the other side. We saw what Giroux is doing during his first 2 games on Florida beside Barkov. He has 4 assists. The dude is a natural playmaker and gels incredibly with Alexander Barkov. An underrated aspect of Giroux's game, like we said, is that he provides that shutdown offensive option for a team who's notoriously bad on winger defense, especially with Jonathan Huberdeau. Shout out Jonathan Huberdeau and Colin Wash on that one.
So much slander on this podcast.
We're having fun today. That's all I'm saying. We all know that Barkov is phenomenal two-way and that Huberdeau is terrible, so I think that's why they don't play together and why Giroux fits well on Barkov's line. Giroux is in the 90th percentile of all defensive stats as a phenomenal two-way forward, and so I think he fits perfectly there. One other thing that I'll say that we didn't talk about last episode and we'll elaborate on here is that Florida paradoxically needed improvements on the power play. Right now, as I looked it up, they're in the middle third of power play stats throughout all teams in the league, and for a team that's in second place, you would think that their power play would be a little bit better. Right now, they sit at 23%, and I mean, in order to improve your power play, having a guy like Claude Giroux isn't a bad idea. In his first 2 games, he's already got 2 power play assists. He's making a quick and noticeable improvement on that power play. So just long story short, Claude Giroux fills in every hole that Florida needed at this deadline.
I didn't realize their power play was that average.
Yeah,
and they're that good. Oh my God. If Bobrovsky is average, they will be dangerous.
Yeah. On a side note, the Florida Panthers probably will go to the Stanley Cup Finals if Sergei Bobrovsky isn't terrible. Like you said, it's all going to come down to him.
Yeah, they have no holes.
All right, who's your guy?
And well, speaking of goaltending, I am going to continue my Minnesota Wild propaganda.
Oh boy,
and say Marc-Andre Fleury. I didn't realize until last episode when you brought it up just how bad Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kähkönen had been. But they were really bad. We would talk about the stats last episode. But Fleury is a goalie who still has it. Won the Vezina last year. We talked about this all last episode. And this Minnesota Wild team is solid everywhere else. They have a pretty solid group of forwards. They have a decent group of defensemen. Jared Spurgeon, Matt Dumba, kind of underrated guys. Jonas Brodin is also really good. And they were top of their division earlier in the year when Cam Talbot was playing like an all-star, which he got voted for. So I can see a world where this kind of moves the needle for them. They're getting, even if Fleury is just average, because an average is significantly better than the 880 save percentage they've been getting over the past month or so. So I think Fleury can push them over the top. Hopefully they crack a wild card spot or maybe 3rd in the Central. I'm not sure. And another maybe underrated aspect to this is that some goalies thrive when there's some competition, someone pushing them. Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kähkönen were so bad that they weren't even like competing with one another. And so maybe Fleury can push Talbot so that if they do want to split time and make sure Fleury's rested for the playoffs, like Talbot might be able to put up some numbers for them. It was funny because on the day they traded for him, so on deadline day, the Wild had a game and Talbot got a shutout that night. So, I mean, that's largely coincidence, but maybe that sort of sets the scene for some healthy competition. And if you can get good goaltending from two guys leading into the playoffs, that puts you in a perfect spot to go on a run with a healthy Fleury, who, although he has the stereotype of being bad in the playoffs, it's just not true. He's quite good. So I'm thinking Fleury can rejuvenate this Wild team and make me look like less of an idiot after calling them a sneaky dark horse to compete in the West. So
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Fleury does a lot for Minnesota, but as you alluded to, one of the biggest aspects of him joining the Minnesota Wild is playoff experience. Is there a single player on Minnesota that has playoff experience, or like Stanley Cup, not playoff experience, Stanley Cup experience?
Not any player of consequence on their team.
Yeah, they're very young. They got guys like Hartman, Kaprizov, Fiala. Who else plays on that? Yeah, Boldy, Zuccarello. None of those guys have won Stanley Cups.
I think Zuccarello might have gone. He was probably on the team with the Rangers that went to the Cup final, but that was almost like a decade ago now.
Yeah, when you think about it, at the deadline, Marc-Andre Fleury was definitely the most movable player with the most playoff experience. He's won 3 Stanley Cups, a Conn Smythe trophy as well, I believe.
I don't know if he won the Conn Smythe in one of those years. I'm not sure, but regardless,
he definitely has a save percentage above 900 in the playoffs.
Yeah,
multiple cup runs. I mean, he's definitely the guy.